Hello and welcome to this presentation, netting via the central counterparty. In earlier presentations, we looked at the way in which two end users, the farmer and the manufacturer, could enter into a derivative contract, such as a forward or a futures, in order to manage market risk. But in both cases, we appreciate that they are still subject to counterparty risk. That is to say, the problems that may arise if either of those two parties default on their obligation to either deliver or make delivery of the underlying asset. In the case of the futures contract, we saw that there is the central counterparty who acts as a guarantor to the various clearing members on the exchange, thereby ensuring contract fulfillment if either party defaults. And they do this through a process of margining. But one of the other roles of the clearinghouse and benefits is that it provides a netting facility to the various members. That is to say that if a member of the exchange wants to terminate or close or offset an original derivatives contract, then they can do that. So let's just remind ourselves of the situation. Let's suppose that we have a farmer and a manufacturer that gives an original order to their respective brokers, whereby broker B is going to buy futures on behalf of the manufacturer and broker A is going to sell futures on behalf of their client, the farmer. So they do the trade, and as we mentioned in an earlier presentation, the central counterparty or the clearinghouse steps in the middle of the trade through the process of novation, thereby becoming counterparty to both broker A and broker B. Remember that broker A and B can sometimes be referred to also as the clearing members. Let's suppose now that broker A gets an instruction from their client to terminate the contract before futures maturity. What happens now is that broker A doesn't have to go back to broker B and ask to be let out of the contract. All broker A has to do is to go back onto the exchange and find somebody else in the market who is willing to trade with them at the new futures price. In this example, let's suppose that broker A trades with broker C. Let's also imagine that when this trade takes place, the revised futures price is at $120. Remember, the original futures trade that broker A participated in with broker B was $100. Now in this case, what happens is that if you look at broker A's positions, they are both long futures at 120 and short futures at 100. In this particular example, don't forget that the clearinghouse is the ultimate counterparty in this trade, and through the process of variation margin would have been administering broker A's position over time. So in this situation, we would say that when broker A executes the long futures position to net out their position or close out their position, they would have paid up to that point $20 in variation margin to the clearinghouse. And of course, in this very simple example, that $20 variation margin would have been transferred to broker B. Now, with this netting process, what it means is that broker A can now be removed from the equation. We are left then with broker C, who has a short futures position. And going forward for the remaining maturity of this particular futures contract, all that happens now is that payments and receipts of variation margin will just flow from party B, yes, and party C. And then again, once more at maturity of the futures contract, if the two positions are held to maturity, the final flow of variation margin will take place and the initial margin is returned. So what this example sort of illustrates here then is the attraction that members have in order to close out futures contracts before maturity if they so wish. This of course is attractive for both speculators in the market and hedgers as well, because maybe in the example that we looked at here, the farmer originally sold futures because they were worried about adverse movements in the underlying market price of their crop. They were worried about prices going down. However, against their expectation, prices went up. So it was no surprise then that maybe the farmer decided to terminate their contract early. And we saw how easy it was to do this via the central counterparty.